Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're unearthing the hidden complexities behind U.S. employment statistics.
Yeah, these are the numbers that seem to define our economic reality.
Exactly. But their reliability it's really under intense scrutiny right now.
Our deep dive today is all about that. We're looking into recent concerns, especially around how we measure jobs in the U.S.
Particularly with these significant revisions we've seen.
Right. We'll explore why these numbers are raising eyebrows, how they're collected and what the potential implications are for all of us. Personal finance, national policy, it touches everything.
You've probably seen the headlines yourself. Things like missing jobs or heard debates asking, is the economy really as strong as the official reports suggest?
It's a really crucial conversation.
Yeah, and we're going to try and help you cut through some of that noise, figure out what's truly going on.
Okay.
So to really understand the landscape, let's zero in on maybe the most eye-opening thing from our sources. These recent updates showing hundreds of thousands of jobs just, well, effectively vanishing from the records. It's the largest downward adjustment since 2020, apparently.
Yeah, this isn't just a small statistical blip. It's a huge red flag.
Okay.
Take May and June, for example. The initial projections, they were quite optimistic. Over 100,000 new jobs each month.
Right, I remember seeing those.
But now, those figures have been slashed dramatically, down to maybe 15,000, 20,000.
Wow.
And what our sources really highlight is that those initial numbers you see, well, and they're often based on such incomplete data. They're more like early guesses, unverified whispers almost.
Not concrete facts.
Not at all. The revision is where the truth, or something closer to it, starts to emerge. And in this case, it's a pretty stark reminder that first impressions can be wildly misleading.
That's a staggering difference, though, between the first claim and the revised reality. So what's fundamentally happening, on the ground level that makes these numbers so elusive? Can you walk us through how they're actually gathered? Where do these huge discrepancies creep in?
Sure. So the data primarily comes from surveys. They're sent out to companies, different industries.
Okay.
But just imagine trying to accurately poll millions of businesses. You've got everything from a tiny mom and pop shop to massive multinational corporations.
Right, the scale alone.
Exactly. The response rate is inherently imperfect. Some businesses just don't reply in time. Others might struggle to track precise figures themselves. And the data collection itself, it's always a bit delayed. You can think of economic data as being kind of like a weather forecast that's based on incomplete, slightly outdated information.
That's a good analogy.
So these initial projections, they're built using that incomplete data, plus, historical trends. That makes them inherently unstable.
Especially when things are chaotic, economically speaking.
Especially then. Now look, frequent revisions are expected. That's normal. But what our sources emphasize is when you see large, persistent errors like these, well, that signals something might be fundamentally wrong with the models themselves.
Okay, so there are issues with the mechanics of data collection. But the plot seems to thicken beyond that, doesn't it? Our sources dive deep into how these numbers have gotten tangled up in, political maneuvering.
Right.
They highlight, for instance, that former President Trump fired the Commissioner of Labor Statistics,
Yes, I remember that.
accusing her, she was a Biden appointee, of manipulating the numbers to benefit Kamala Harris politically.
Right.
The article describes his social media posts about it as quite unhinged.
And this situation, it really just underscores the dangers,
Right,
the
right.
dangers of politicizing what should be objective data.
Absolutely.
When political pressure starts to impact the messengers, the people delivering the economic news, it's like, it's like blaming the weatherman because it's raining.
And firing him.
Right, instead of actually looking at the underlying atmospheric conditions, it raises a really critical question about maintaining the integrity of these institutions. They're supposed to provide unbiased information.
So it sounds like this isn't just about one specific incident then. Maybe it's part of a more worrying pattern, a weakened oversight.
That's precisely what our sources suggest. Yeah, this isn't isolated.
Okay.
The article points out that the previous administration also dismissed the independent watchdog who oversaw labor statistics
A watchdog.
and disbanded
Expert advisory committees. These committees, they traditionally provided really crucial checks on data accuracy. They offered expert advice on methodology.
So layers of
challenging.
What are these larger forces? How do they throw the numbers off?
Well, the labor market has been profoundly affected by several big things, factors like mass deportations and shifting tariffs, for instance.
How so?
They make it very hard for companies to plan ahead or even find the workers they need. Take the construction industry. It's lost a lot of workers due to deportations.
Right.
And these sudden large-scale shifts, well, they can't be quickly or accurately factored into the traditional statistical models. Industries that rely heavily on immigrant labor are especially impacted.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then you have the tariffs, the sort of unpredictable back and forth on trade policy that also destabilizes hiring. Companies react to uncertain policy changes by maybe delaying or freezing new hires.
Uncertainty rules.
Pretty much. And deportations, or even just the fear of raids, means fewer workers are available or willing to show up. That leads to fewer jobs being filled, and you get a stagnant, maybe even declining job market that the traditional models just struggle to capture in real time.
This leads us to a really fascinating paradox then. Because while these job numbers look shaky, particularly the revisions, official GDP reports, that's gross domestic product, the total value of goods and services, they suggest the economy is actually growing. Up 3% in the last quarter, the sources say. How do we square that circle?
Yeah, it's a nuanced point for sure. And according to our sources, this recent GDP growth is largely attributed to a surge in imports earlier in the year.
Imports.
Yeah.
How does that boost GDP? Isn't that usually seen as an outflow?
It seems counterintuitive, right? But when goods are imported and then stored as inventory, they're initially counted as an investment.
Ah, okay. Inventory buildup.
Exactly. So it temporarily adds to the GDP calculation. It can provide a temporary boost that might mask underlying weaknesses, like in domestic production or actual consumer demand.
Interesting.
The article even suggests that if you sort of average out both the initial shaky jobs figures and these GDP figures, the actual growth rate looks closer to maybe 1.4%.
Which is quite a bit lower than the government's target.
Significantly below their 2% target, yeah.
So putting the official numbers aside for a second, what are people actually experiencing, on the ground? Do their personal vibes about the economy match these official numbers? Or maybe the revised ones?
Well, on-the-ground reports seem to confirm it. It's proving extremely difficult for a lot of people to find jobs right now.
So lived experience matches the tougher picture.
It seems so. It reinforces the doubts about those initial, more optimistic official numbers. Our sources suggest that the vibes, you could say, or the general public sentiment, are finally starting to align with the hard data.
Specifically the revised data.
Specifically the revised data, yeah. As both start to paint a more challenging picture of the job market, it's quite a powerful moment, actually, when lived experience starts to validate the corrected statistics.
The author of our main source warns of a really profound consequence if this trend continues, this trend of unreliable data. What's really at stake here?
The warning is pretty unequivocal. If the government stops reporting reliable, trustworthy data, well, it could have dire consequences.
For who? For U.S. credibility? For global financial stability? The author draws a stark parallel to China, actually, where unemployment stats were apparently just sort of quietly hidden when things started looking bad.
Wow. Just stopped reporting them.
Essentially. And trust is the bedrock of any stable economy, any well-functioning society. If citizens and global markets can't trust the numbers, it's like building a house on sand, right?
It's bound to collapse eventually.
Eventually, confidence collapses, investment collapses.
Right.
The article even closes with this sort of thought-provoking cultural anecdote about the Smithsonian Museum removing a name from one of its exhibits.
Really? Why?
It suggests perhaps a broader trend of selective historical memory, of choosing what facts or narratives we want to present.
That's a powerful connection to make.
It is.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've explored just how complex and sometimes, let's face it, unreliable employment statistics can be.
Yeah, from the collection methods, the political pressures, to the underlying economic forces that can skew them. It's a lot to take in.
But understanding these nuances is really crucial, because economic data, it isn't just a dry collection of numbers, is it?
No, it forms the foundation for big decisions.
Exactly. Decisions from your personal finances all the way up to national policy. I mean, if we can't trust the thermometer, how can we truly know if the economy is healthy?
That's the core question.
Yeah.
Today, hopefully, we've armed you with some insights that cut through that information overload, giving you maybe a few aha moments that make you genuinely well-informed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for your final provocative thought to take away, as you consume economic news in the future, don't just look at the headline number. Consider the whole context. Ask yourself, who collected that data? How was it collected? What are its built-in limitations?
And what are those broader economic, maybe even political forces that might be shaping or perhaps even skewing
Yeah.
the figures being reported?
Right. This deep dive, hopefully, arms you with the critical thinking needed to see far beyond just the surface level.